All right, hey guys, so this video is about graphing quadratic equations. So I've already filled in some information here. The standard form of a quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, the graph of it, so when graphed, a quadratic equation creates a U-shaped curve called a parabola. Use your graphing calculator to sketch the following. So if you don't have your graphing calculator brought up on your computer, you may want to do that. Remember, you can click on the link on the TI-84 link that I posted last week and go and download a free calculator. So on the first one, if you type this in on your y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5, you're going to have a graph that looks kind of like this. Okay, on the second one, negative x squared plus 3x plus 7, you're going to have a graph that looks kind of like this. So what happens here is that if your a is positive, so the number in front of the x squared is a positive, then your parabola is going to open up like a smile. If your a is negative, like this one, then the parabola is going to open down like a frown. Okay, so the next part I've already filled out is the axis of symmetry. It's the vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal parts. So on these graphs right here, your axis of symmetry would be an imaginary line that looks like this. Okay, it goes through your vertex, which is this point right here, and I'll explain that in a second. Okay, the formula for the axis of symmetry, if you were to find this algebraically, it's x equals negative b divided by 2a. So you multiply negative times whatever your b is, and then you divide it by 2 times a. Your vertex is the turning point of the parabola. When the vertex is the lowest point, like on this one, it's called a minimum. Okay, I'm gonna draw a little arrow here and say that's a vertex, and it is a minimum. When the vertex is the highest point, like on this one right here, it's called a maximum vertex, and it's a maximum. Okay, so some examples here. So it says find the axis of symmetry and vertex, then sketch each parabola. Okay, so you actually, on this part, you don't really have to do this on the graphing calculator because we're just sketching it. It doesn't have to look exactly like it. Now you can always check yourself on there, but you don't have to. Okay, so on number 1 right here, using this example, first they want us to find the axis of symmetry. So we do negative, and then our b is 8, and it's divided by 2 times our a. If there's not a number in front right here, it's 1. So it's negative 8 divided by 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So our axis of symmetry is x equals negative 4. And if you remember back to when we talked about Hoivux, we talked about horizontal and vertical lines. Remember, a vertical line is an x equals equation. That's why, like this right here, our axis of symmetry, they're always going to be vertical lines, and that's why it's an x equals. So it's x equals negative 4 for this one. Then our vertex, to find that, you would take this negative 4 and you would plug it back in for the x's to find out what our y value is going to be. So you say y equals, you say negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 15. Okay, and then you would want to solve this right here. Okay, so you have, all you have to do is type that part in on your calculator. You can say negative 4 squared, which is just positive 16, and then plus 8 times negative 4, which is negative 32. So you can do 16 plus negative 32, or 16 minus 32, and then plus 15. And you end up getting negative 1. So our y is negative 1. Okay, so our vertex here, our x value, is negative 4, and our y is negative 1. So that's what our vertex is going to be. Then they want us to sketch it. Well, if this is a positive, we know it's going to be opened upward like so. We're going to have a vertex here at negative 4, negative 1, and then we're going to have an axis of symmetry that goes through it. That's going to be x equals negative 4. And that's all you have to do for the sketching part. Okay? All right, so flip over to the other side. We want to do the same thing here on this next one. So our axis of symmetry, okay, so we have a negative, our B is 10, and it's divided by 2 times our A is negative 1. So that is negative 10 divided by 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is a positive 5. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 5. And our x of our vertex is 5. Then we plug that back in to be able to find out what our y value is of our vertex. So you say y equals negative, then we have 5 squared plus 10 times 5 minus 23. Notice how this negative is on the outside. That's because it was a negative right here, okay? This was not a negative 5 that we're plugging in. That's why the negative goes on the outside, okay? Type that in and find out what that's going to be. So we have negative, and then we have 5 squared, and then plus 10 times 5, and then minus 23. And you get 2. So y equals 2. So our y value here is 2. Okay, so our vertex is 5, 2. So since this is a negative, our graph is going to open downward like so. Our vertex up here is going to be 5, 2. And our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 5. And that's our sketch. Okay, number 3, same thing. So we have negative. Our b on this one is negative 12. And it's over 2 times our a, which is 3. So negative times negative 12, it's going to be a positive 12. 2 times 3 is 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 2. And our x value of our vertex is 2. Then we take that 2 and plug it back in to find out what our y value is. So we have y equals 3 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 5. And then you just want to solve this part right here. So you have 3 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 5. And you get negative 7. So y equals negative 7 is our y value of our vertex. So when we sketch this, this is a positive, so it's going to open upward. Our vertex is at 2, negative 7, and our axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Okay? That's pretty much all we're doing on these. Let's skip down to number 7 down here, because if you notice, it only has the a and the b terms. It doesn't have the c. Okay, so we have negative. Our b is 4 over 2 times our a is negative 1. So it's negative 4 over negative 2, which equals a positive 2. So we have x equals 2 as our axis of symmetry. We're going to plug that back in to find out what our y value is going to be. So we have y equals negative times 2 squared plus 4 times 2. Okay, and then we want to solve that from right there. So we have negative times 2 squared, and then plus 4 times 2. And we're going to get y equals 4 is going to be our y value. Okay, so this is a negative, so it's going to open downward. Our vertex here is going to be at 2, 4. And our axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals 2. Okay, on number 8, this time we have our a and our c term, but we don't have the b. That means the b is going to be 0. So we have negative 0 over 2 times our a is 1. Well, is there such thing as negative 0? No. So it's just 0 equal or over 2 times 1 is 2. And 0 divided by anything is 0. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Our vertex here, the x value is going to be 0. We plug that back in here. So we have y equals 0 squared minus 3. Well, 0 squared is just 0. 0 minus 3 is just negative 3. So y equals negative 3. So our y value is -3. Okay, so then sketching this, it's a positive, so it's going to open upward here. Our vertex is going to be at 0, -3, and our axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals 0. Okay, same thing on this next one here. So our b is still 0 because we have our a and our c terms. So it's -0 over 2 times our a is -2. No such thing as -0, so you just say 0. 2 times -2 is -4. 0 divided by -4 is 0. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Plug that back in to find out what our y value of our vertex is. So we have -2 times 0 squared plus 8. 0 squared is 0. -2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 8 is 8. So y equals 8 is the y value. Okay, then we want to sketch it. Well, this is a negative, so it's going to open downward. Our vertex here is going to be at 0, 8. Our axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals 0. Okay, and so that's all you're doing when we are working on sketching and graphing our quadratic equations.